had just started my MBA. Overnight, my income completely disappears. Lost everything, had to file bankruptcy, was pregnant with our first child, moved into my dad's basement. I was looking for jobs like crazy. I just was not having any success. My entire platform, the whole thing I talk about is how do we bring humanity back to work? How do we help people feel seen? Still educating kids to work in a factory. I think we're wasting so much time teaching them all the stuff they're never going to use and not teaching them how to think. We're not actually teaching them the skills they're going to need in order to thrive in the world that we live in. In the US, it's very much performance-based, shareholder value, metrics and results. Of course, we're going to focus on the numbers and the metrics instead of the people. The ironic thing is, when you focus on the people, they will take care of your numbers and metrics. We all know what great leadership is, but it's very uncommon in practice. This is happening everywhere. We just promote people based on performance and then say, okay, here's a team of people to lead, and we don't give them the training to do it. If you really want to get there in a sustainable way while you keep your people, then take care of your people.
So, David, I'm stoked you joined today, man.
Hey, man.
Who would have thought, 20 years ago, teaching snowboarding that this is where we'd be.
I know.
So many years later. But I'm glad to be here. So yeah, so the podcast always starts the same way with some version of where are you from? So where are you from?
I was born in the spring of 1977. Fort Wayne, Indiana is where I was born. Spent about 3 or 4 months there is all. And then we moved to Germany for 3 years. With my dad's job. We went there and then grew up in Bountiful, Utah. So early life was bounced around a little bit, but spent most of my life in Utah.
I had no idea about Indiana or Germany.
I mean, Indiana, there's not much to tell.
I mean, hey, but like those formative 3 months.
There's something in there, I'm sure, if I talk to the therapist.
I mean, I'm sure. Yeah. Have you read, side note, but have you read the book, Myth and Normal, The Myth and Normal?
No.
Dude, so fascinating book. I highly recommend it. He talks about, like, he goes through this whole book and he's talking about a bunch of different things, but the general idea is that, like our traumas are held like physically in our bodies somewhere. And that's what he says. And so,
I've heard that before.
Yeah. And so he tells this whole story about this trauma that he's dealing with. And finally, through some really deep work, I think he did like an ayahuasca retreat or something like that. And he was able to recover this memory of being like an infant when they had to flee. I don't know if he was in Germany, but like it was like oppression during World War II. Like they were fleeing for their lives. And his mom had to, as an infant, was like afraid that he wasn't going to get away and like handed him off to someone in their family. Was like, please just take care of my baby. And so then so my point is like, he tells the story and how he realized this is impacting him and from like, infant, like maybe 3 months old. My point is this is a long answer to a comment, which is you never know how much how much you're impacted in those 3 months in Indiana.
Yeah,
it might be that might be the reason you're here. How many years were you in Germany?
3.
3 years. Okay. Do you remember that at all?
I mean, I think I have memories, but I think it's mostly from photos. So I look back at pictures and I have kind of little glimpses. I remember I had a little girlfriend named Nini who lived across the street. We have a couple of darling pictures together. Didn't work out.
It's tough, man. You just couldn't keep it going, In the age of the internet, maybe.
Yeah,
but yeah,
maybe.
That's awesome. Do you, have you ever tried to like track Nini down? I mean, Nini's probably a nickname too.
No, it might have been short for something, but I feel like I did like in my early 20s, maybe, but never found her.
Nothing, never.
Yeah. And, now it doesn't matter.
Worked out okay.
Worked out.
Oh, man. This is a little bit of a jump, but like you're like an explorer, right? You like to go and travel and experience the world. Like I haven't been until I was much older, but have you kind of always been that way? Do you think that, I'm thinking like, I don't know, your early experiences, you moved countries. Do you think that kind of flexibility came?
Maybe. I mean, I've always loved to travel. When we were in Germany, just because we were in Europe and everything was so close, like we would go to Switzerland for Christmas or, we'd hop around a little bit. Cool. And I don't remember any of it, unfortunately, but I don't know. Again, like maybe that's one of the things that was kind of ingrained in me. And then my parents were not wealthy at all. We were very like average middle class, I would say, maybe even on the low end for most of my growing up years. But parents, both my dad traveled a ton for work, and he had been to so many different countries. My mom is Persian, and so having that other cultural influence in our lives, like travel was just always a really important thing. So whether we didn't fly places a lot, but we drove even just around, the US, taking cross country trips or whatever every once in a while, or up and down the West Coast. And, yeah, travel was always a thing. Even in my late teens, I would go up to Seattle every spring to visit my cousins up there. I mean, I've always had this thing, and I wouldn't call myself an explorer or an adventurer necessarily. It's not like I go out and, swing from trees in the jungle or anything. But I just love to travel. I love the whole thing. Like, some people are just built for certain things. I love being in airports. I love being in airplanes. I love being in different places, like getting in one place, getting out, being somewhere completely different.
Like, it's interesting that you say even like being on airplanes, because I hear a lot of people talk about traveling, but the airplanes is that much. But I remember a bunch of years ago, I remember you used to like on Instagram, you were talking about another day, another Delta.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been also blessed to travel in a way that's nicer than most people get to travel. Still commercial, it's
Sure.
not like I have my own private jet or anything.
Yeah.
But when you get to travel well, that makes a big difference.
That's a good point. So your mom's Persian. Did she immigrate here?
Yep. So she lived in Iran until she was about 12, and then her mom took her and her brother to Germany to go to school.
Okay.
So that's where she had kind of her teenage years, and then trying to remember the progression from there. I think she went to Geneva, and then to England, where she learned English, and then out to Utah.
Was she like a stereotypical immigrant mother, like pretty hard on you, pretty strict, and pretty?
Yeah. Discipline was definitely something that she pounded in, from, work and service to how we ate to how we spent our time. Yeah, it was an intense childhood.
So where do you like? Are you on the kind of the pendulum? Like, are you still like lean pretty heavy toward that discipline, or are you like, I feel like the next generation sometimes they're like all in, that's the only way, or are you like completely on the other side?
I think it kind of depends on the situation. I think me as a person, I am very disciplined, and I hold myself to a very strict standard. My wife grew up very differently than I did. So that actually was pretty tough for me for the first several years of our marriage, because I wanted to raise our kids a certain way, and she was much more. And I can't say my way was right and hers was wrong.
Sure.
It's just totally different, and I wasn't used to it. And so it took me a while to kind of figure out how to find that balance. There are still things that I think we should do differently, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, as long as we're raising good kids that have strong faith, believe in God, love their family, are good to people, like, who cares,
Yeah. But that's hard. That's a hard place to get
hard.
to. I mean, that's what you just described right now. 100% agree. I'm guessing that, how long is Danielle or Daniela? Sorry.
Danielle.
How long have you and Danielle been together?
20 years.
I mean, so like you to look back 17, 18 years, that probably comment would have been the same. Not the same, maybe,
Not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right, man. Like, first, like, I think our differences are so important, and their value in a different experience. But also it's so hard. And I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, I'm sure you guys are similar. You obviously had have enough in common that you get along, you made it 20 years. But like, look, my wife and I, we were raised like 10 minutes apart from each other, maybe not quite 10 minutes, but pretty darn close. Like, differences are still like a big problem, But I mean, Danielle, she's from Brazil, right?
Yeah.
So I can imagine that there's differences in background. That's hard.
Cultural
Freaking
differences
hard.
are tough.
Yeah.
I mean, she grew up with, I mean, again, like, her parents were not wealthy, but the class difference in Brazil, it's still pretty extreme. But even back then, she went to a private school, grew up with a maid that would make her bed every day and like cook their meals and all that stuff. And so that was her upbringing. That was her reality. So it was just, and to her credit, like, she has made some huge changes marrying me and being in this culture now where that's just not as much of a thing.
That sounds nice. I could get behind.
I take that.
I could get behind that. So, all right. So thanks for going out with that or down that little that tangent with me. I think it's interesting. So you're raised in Bountiful, and then how'd you end up choosing where you wanted to go to college?
Honestly, dude, I don't even remember the thought process. I think I just figured, oh, the U of U is close.
Okay.
And well, actually, that's not true. I guess I started doing some college classes in high school. So I was interested in Middle East studies originally. So I think it was, did I start junior or senior year? I can't remember. I think it was even junior year. I started taking Hebrew classes at the U. Had a couple of amazing teachers, actual Israelis, and made some good friends there and stuff. And so I think that was part of the pull to the U. And so when I graduated high school, it was just a natural transition because I thought I wanted to do Middle East studies. And then I did 4 other majors. Could never decide on what I wanted to do.
What did they go? The 4 majors?
So I think I went from Middle East studies to some throwaway like outdoor recreation something to architecture.
All right.
Yeah, that lasted about 15 minutes to finally, I was like, just get me out of college. So I ended up doing communication.
Well, I mean, that's awesome.
Which is like, you can do everything and you can do nothing with that one.
Yeah, but I mean, you're actually like, I mean, I know plenty of people who went to college, I'm getting a communications degree to get out of here. But you're like, you have a communications degree and you're actually like using it. Like that's like the most appropriate degree for you, what you do, I feel like.
I suppose. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't tell you a thing I learned, but I mean, it's like I did an MBA too, which like I got the 3 letters behind my name, but I literally could not tell you a single thing that went into my brain. But I know that it's in there.
Yeah.
And whatever we learn, I know
it's building on it.
Yeah. It's just, it sinks in and comes out in different ways.
I'm a big fan of education. It's been so impactful in my life. But I see it slightly different now as I've gotten older, and I'm curious. Like you have plenty of education. You spent how long did it take you to do your undergrad? I was on I took a long time.
I think I don't know 5-6 years.
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. No.
I mean, throw a mission in there, and
that's really impressive. Okay, so, but like, what are your thoughts on education right now? Like, I don't know, like, what are you telling your kids that they should study? I mean, it's, if you would have come to me, 5 years ago and said, Jeff, was business school worth it? 100%. I loved it. It was so good. I have a different answer now. Like, and so I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
I have thoughts that are not founded in any kind of deep research or thought or learning, but it's just more of as I look at the state of education and what I think about it, just when you ask me off the top of my head, we are still educating kids to work in a factory. We're not actually teaching them the skills they're going to need in order to thrive in the world that we live in. Like I have a son in high school, right? He is learning math that every high school kid learns, that I learned. And I'm like, at least explain to me what I might possibly use this for, rather than just telling me how to figure out a formula or how to figure out a problem. Like, what's the point of that? Like, yes, there's inherent value in learning how to think through something and have a process and that kind of stuff. But subjects like math or, science or physics or any of these things that, like, great, if you're going to go into that, and if that's really what your passion is, knock yourself out. But otherwise, it's like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Like, and maybe, a couple other life things. It's just, I mean, I think we're wasting so much time teaching them all the stuff they're never going to use and not teaching them how to think properly, how to discern, how to make good decisions, how to use AI in a way that is actually going to benefit them and help them to think more deeply about stuff. I think that's where we need to be spending our time. But, I know there are so many things that I don't know that the education system is struggling with that makes it so difficult to turn that ship around. But honestly, I just think it's so antiquated and it just needs a huge overhaul. Yeah.
I think well said. The thing that stood out to me was the point about critical thinking. And you're right. I mean, it's hard to gain critical thinking when you're explicitly told, like, I like your math example, right? When you're explicitly told that your job is to follow an existing formula and do things a specific way, because that's how you solve a math problem. And that's, if you're solving math problems, for sure. But if you're trying to learn critical thinking, which is so important, that's not going to get you there. Okay. So you ended up studying communications. And then what was your first job after college?
I did a bunch of sales jobs, and what I did right after college was cell phone sales for Verizon, then moving on to AT&T. I was there for several years. And then, but like even during college, it was, I mean, I did everything. I did house painting. I was a server at a restaurant. I taught snowboarding. Like bouncing all over the place, just doing whatever.
So you had a bunch of jobs. And then you were working at AT&T and Verizon. You were like on the floor, like working in sales, right?
Yeah.
Is there any connection between how you approach building relationships with people on the floor in a cell phone shop and how you approach building relationships now, like with an audience?
I would say it is the polar opposite.
All right, talk me through it. Well, this is good.
Literally, like, I have, just week and a half ago, I went out to lunch with 2 of the guys, one of whom happens to be my best friend, that I used to work with at AT&T.
Oh, wow,
right?
that's
25 years ago. We used to sit in the break room, like the store we worked at was on 600 South, right across the street from the Grand America, downtown. It was kind of an obscure spot, like not in a mall. It was so, it wasn't super busy. So we would sit in the break room that had a window that looked out to the parking lot where everybody would park as they came in.
Yeah.
Literally, a car would park in would park in a spot. Somebody would get out. If we saw that they had a bill in their hand, it was like, not it, not it, not it, right? It was a not it like contest every time, right? The last thing we wanted to do was go talk to people unless they were going to buy something.
Sure. I get that.
Not, and like, we'll talk probably more about this down the road, but just, I don't know, the attitude that I had toward other people. I was a very selfish person.
Sure.
As I think it's very
Everyone
easy
is.
to be when you're in your early 20s, right?
You have to focus. You have to be. I mean, like from the time you're a child, and then sometimes you start to grow out of it. Like it's inherent. Like I think children are selfish.
Yeah. So it was like, how do I get you out of here as quickly as I can? How do I spend as little time with you? How do I, just get back to the break room and play video games? That was how I handled relationships with clients back then.
And now you said the polar opposite, right? So now you're looking for what? What's the opposite of that?
Well, now, I mean, my entire platform, the whole thing I talk about is how do we bring humanity back to work? How do we see people, notice them, help them to know that they matter, that their ideas and their perspectives are valuable? Like all these things of how do we help people feel seen and heard and noticed?
So let's talk about that then for a minute. Like I think that's important. And when I asked the question, I was thinking, yeah, there's probably some connection there because like it's a quick. You gotta build a relationship quickly. But I don't know. I appreciate you being honest about it and telling me that no, it's not it.
I was not the top salesperson, by the way.
Hey, well, you did it. You were there. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the humanity that's missing at work. I mean, I feel like humanity is missing. Let me ask this: is this missing humanity? Do you think it's isolated to the workplace, or do you think it's like
no, of course not.
Okay.
That's just where most people spend most of their time. And so that's where I focus, try to reach as many people as I can.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you think there's like a root cause of this? Like what's going on? Because I totally agree with you. I feel like there's this thing here, but like, just like this sucks. But like, I don't know, I guess we'll just deal with it.
I think socially there is something that, I mean, and look, all this bleeds together, but I think the symptoms or the things that we notice are different at work, or the perceived causes are different at work than they are just out in the world. But with business specifically, I think it's, again, kind of like the education system. It's the way we're choosing to look at and run our businesses, right? And this varies from country to country slightly. Some countries are better than others, and some have more of have a different approach or a mindset to the way they run their business. But in the U.S., it's very much performance based. It's shareholder value, it's metrics and results, it's all of the process, it's all that stuff. And I can't necessarily blame the leaders themselves, one, because it's the pool we're swimming in. Like you can't swim in a pile of mud and not get dirty. So it's just the environment that we've created. But especially for anyone who's not at the top of the totem pole, it's the culture and the reality in which they operate, in which they live, right? And so, or work. And so they get pressure from their bosses. They have to perform. They have metrics. They have their expectations. They have their job titles and their job descriptions that say you have to perform this, or you're gone. So of course we're going to focus on the numbers and the metrics instead of the people. The ironic thing is, when you focus on the people, they will take care of your numbers and metrics. And I mean, I can say that, and you can believe me or not, but there is example after case study after proof point after statistic after research that just proves that is the case. But nobody wants to believe it.
Why do you think that is? Because my thought is, when you say that, like, anecdotally, like, yeah, 100%.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's common sense.
Yeah, anyone's going to hear it and be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would ever disagree with that. So why do people not do it then?
Because it doesn't happen as fast as beating somebody over the head to get their numbers, right? People are not willing. When you're operating in a certain way and you realize, hey, there's a better way to do it, which is, let's take care of the human being. Let's make sure that they're taken care of. Let's make sure they have what they need to succeed. Let's make sure that we're looking at their interests before the interests of the company. Not before, but at least, in equal amounts. When you start behaving differently, your performance is actually going to dip because you're doing things differently. Sure. Stuff's not working. You don't have it all figured out. You haven't got that new system or that new process. And so people are not willing to take that dip before things hockey stick.
Fear. is the problem. That makes perfect sense. And I'm guessing, tell me if I'm reading between the lines here incorrectly here, but I mean, it sounds like it's probably people are afraid to make that change themselves. And also leaders are afraid to wait that time out. Like if you start seeing that happen, then you're going to start getting pressure, and then it's ultimately going to be
right. If your performance dips, that reflects poorly on you, which you don't want, right? And so you're not going to take that leap. The other thing too is that leaders might have the best intentions. They might recognize this is what I need to do for my people, but they have no idea how to do it because they've never been trained. They got into their leadership position because they were really good at the job they did. And so now they're leading everybody else who used to do their job. When I lived in Sandy, I lived next door to a guy who worked for a major company that you've heard of. And he got a promotion to a leadership position. And a few weeks later, I was out, I don't know, our kids played together and stuff. So we were outside.
Sure.
And I could tell it was heavy. Like he had a huge weight on his shoulders. I was like, dude, what's going on? He's like, oh my gosh, they put me into this leadership position and I got zero training. I have no idea how to lead people. This is happening everywhere. We just promote people based on performance and then say, okay, here's a team of people to lead, and we don't give them the training to do it. And if we do, it's usually, how do you do this process? How do you create a strategy? How do you do all of these tactical things, which are vital to leadership, obviously, but we're leaving out the human element. And that's where that huge gap is coming from.
Something I thought was interesting is when you were talking about that you saw your friend outside and you could like kind of sense like something's off. This guy's feeling something. I think that's a unique attribute. Do you think, is that something that you've like worked to like be more aware of people with, or do you think that's something you kind of always had, just being aware of other people?
I think I have generally had that awareness. I think doing the work that I do and recognizing a lot of the challenges that people have at work and how that translates into how they show up at home, I've just become more attuned to it because I know what the cause is. I know where it comes from.
I could see that.
So, but it is definitely a learnable skill, I think.
That's really encouraging for people, I think, because I think the follow-up to that is, I think that's an important attribute to have for leaders. If you want to give people your best, you have to understand them and be able to, read the room, so to speak. So it's a trainable skill. All the stuff you just talked about, those are all trainable skills.
Yeah. And I think there's certainly things that you can do, behaviors that need to change and things that you can start to incorporate. But to me, it's less about what you're doing and more about who you're being. It's about your character. Literally, the years that I have spent between my early 20s when I was that selfish jerk to who I'm striving to be now is letting go, we all have that self-interest. I don't think it'll ever go away. But recognizing, okay, what do I need for myself and how do I get what I need so that I can then be better equipped to serve the people around me. And for those leaders who say, great, this all sounds good and I want to try it, but like I can't afford to let my performance dip. Well, don't change everything all at once. Recognize that there are simple, I call them little frictionless behaviors, little things that you can start to do to build more trust, to build more connection, build more psychological safety, to create that environment on your team. And it takes time. There's no shortcut to the human stuff. But start now. You couldn't start yesterday, but you can start right now to start implementing one or two of those little things. Keep everything else the same, but start implementing these little things, conscious of how you're behaving as a leader, how you're showing up. If there's something that is causing that lack of trust or that break in confidence from your people, focus on that first. How do you fix that little thing so that you can start to close that gap? As you close those gaps, naturally, you're going to get higher loyalty. You're going to get better performance. You're going to get more collaboration. You're going to get people speaking up with feedback. All the things that help lead to the performance that you're so afraid to lose.
Let me ask this. You've worked with, I'm going to assume hundreds of companies over the years. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Like,
the reason I hesitate
thousands?
No. It's over 300. But when you say worked with, most of the work that I have done has been showing up and doing a keynote, a workshop. There are not that many companies that I have been able to embed with and see the transformation over years. That is something that actually right now I am working on doing more of so that I can actually see the impact. That was the biggest thing that is the kind of the biggest, I don't know, the one thing that I feel has been missing for me.
I can see that,
is to be able to see the result, if any, of the impact that I had. Like what impact did I actually have coming in and sharing these very simple ideas with you? Did you do anything with them? I assume most people don't, because you're not going to change anything in 45 minutes. But there are, just to give you an example, I in 2009, met Simon Sinek, for your listeners who might know who that guy is. I was just a guy in the audience that heard him speak to a tiny little company of 15 people, a little startup here in Salt Lake. And I grabbed onto his idea and I ran with it and I did something with it. So I have to believe that and that launched me into a 10-year career working with him, right? And so I have to believe that there are people out there who resonate with the ideas that I'm sharing, are doing something with it, which that gives me some peace. But I would love to see on a team level or an organizational level, things genuinely like making a huge shift because of the impact of the work that I'm able to do with people over time.
It's cool. I think so. It sounds like that would be something that would be meaningful, both meaningful to you, and then also from like a data perspective to be able to validate that, hey, this stuff can make a difference, and here's what we've shown.
I mean, I already know it makes a difference. That's the thing. Is like I don't care if it's with me or somebody else. I mean, there are thousands of people out there talking about similar stuff that I talk about. This humanity element at work. I already know that it works. That's the other thing. It's like I don't have to embed with you to be able to stand on stage and confidently tell you for 45 minutes and share with you that this works. I don't care if you use somebody else's method. I don't care if you use somebody else's consulting services. Like, just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Because I know it works. I would love to be able to do more of it myself, but I don't care who it comes from.
Yeah. I was wondering about the kind of the quantity, because you talked about the small changes, and I was wondering if you see, are there different flavors of these things that you talk? When you talk about and recommend people to implement quick changes across different industries or verticals or companies, or is it pretty much, hey, this is pretty much universal? If you're feeling X, it takes this to fix it, and you just go and do it.
Yeah, every company, every team, every industry has their nuances, and if you're a human being, you pretty much need the same thing as everybody else.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right? And so I don't pretend to have the answer or the prescription for everybody. The way that I approach things, I teach principles that are true. And then I help or allow the people that I'm working with, whatever their industry, whatever their company, whatever their country, whatever their team, everything, to take those principles and then create their own practices based on the principles. So it relates to not only their industry, but also to their own leadership style or their own personality. Everybody's going to do it a little bit differently, but the principles remain the same.
You teach them principles and let them govern themselves. It sounds familiar. I love it. That's cool. So let's jumped a little bit ahead, and thanks for going there. But how did you go from selling cell phones to this meeting with Simon Sinek? Was that your next job, working at this small tech company?
No, there's a really and this plays into a much bigger story. But I got my first real job, which was doing a corporate training for a Yellow Pages company.
And that was your goal, right? I remember, like your goal was like, okay.
My dad worked for Franklin Covey for several years. He got to travel the world and do all this stuff. And I thought, man, that seems like something I'd want to do. So got this sales training job, did that for a couple of years, and then this was 2004 to 2006. December of 2006, I left. To get into flipping houses, doing real estate.
Great timing, unfortunately.
Totally. Not only flipping houses, but also opening a kitchen and bath showroom with a family member. Anyway, we all know what happened there. We'll make that long, painful story short. Short version is lost everything, had to file bankruptcy, was pregnant with our first child, moved in to my dad's basement, had just started my MBA. So kind of this perfect storm, right? And so I was looking for jobs like crazy. There's nothing. I just was not having any success. So I thought, well, I got to do something. And I love Apple products, always have. So I went and got a part-time job at the Apple store at the mall, right? Like awesome, wanted to be there forever, wanted to work my way up and kind of take the corporate track, but nobody quit ever. So I couldn't work my way up, right?
What? That's saying something, man. And retail I mean, wow.
Yeah.
What is it? Special water?
Yeah.
The drug.
No, I mean, they, and again, I don't know now, but 20 years ago, just the culture, and there were bad apples. Like my store manager was a total jerk. But the floor managers and the people that I worked with, I mean, they were such good people. And it was an environment where, again, retail, completely different from AT&T, looking forward for people to come in to help with their problems because we had answers, right? And we could help them with stuff and they wanted to do this and they didn't know how. And we're like, oh, let me show you this cool thing, right?
Yeah.
So even then, like total transformation of how I was thinking about building relationships. Anyway, so one day, I was walking, my shift was over. This is part-time, right?
Sure.
And a little side note. So I'd been there for 8 months. I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was at my dad's desk in the basement of his house, studying for my MBA stuff. My wife came over and kind of kneeled down next to me and she looked up at me and basically the message was, what you're doing isn't cutting it. Probably was a little bit offended because I was doing everything I could. And back then, I still now, it's easy for me to get triggered by little stuff like that. So that was in the back of my mind. And I was finishing my shift one day at Apple and I was walking to the back room to grab my stuff and just kind of under my breath to myself, okay, I was talking to myself. I said, man, I got to find another job. And my buddy Barrett heard me and he's like, just so you know, like my best friend they're just starting a door-to-door sales company selling satellite. You can make like 70 grand in a summer. And I was like, that sounds like the worst possible thing ever, but I need money. Yeah. And so I'll go talk to him. So I went to this little startup in Midvale, talked to Lane, and he, found out that I had the corporate sales training background. He found out that I was doing my MBA. He's like, man, like, I don't want you to sell. I want you to come and be our director of training. And I was like, okay,
sweet,
cool, I'll do that. So hired on there. I'd been there for a week and Lane came up to me and he said, hey, we're having this offsite thing or, team building thing. We're bringing in a speaker. Can you come? And it was a night that I had school and I was one of those nerds, dude, that even when I was a kid, never missed school.
School's super important. Yeah.
Remember the discipline growing up, right? From my mom, like, it doesn't matter if you don't want to go to school. Doesn't matter if you're
go.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get sick because we ate so healthy. So there was no excuse to ever miss school. So that was just kind of ingrained in my head. And even like in college, when I was, alone, never missed school, like undergrad, never missed school. Anyway, so I was like, but I want to make a good impression, let them know that I'm committed, whatever. So I'll skip school and I'll go. So tiny little company, just barely started, hadn't even had a selling season yet. 15 people-ish in this room and in walks some guy named Simon Sinek that nobody's ever heard of, right? This is 2009, no book, no TED Talk, like nothing. And some people listening don't even know who he is. So, but he talked about this concept that he was working with called Start With Why, which is basically finding your purpose, right? As I sat there and heard him speak, he was talking about stuff that I already knew, but nobody had ever put it into simple language like he was putting it in. And so I got it immediately. And so I basically stole his idea and I wrote it down into the training manual that I was writing for these guys. And he came back, I don't know, 2-3 months later, he came back to kind of consult with our CEO a couple times. And on one of the trips when he came back, I gave him a copy of the training manual that I'd written. And I didn't even expect him to read it, and he didn't. But the gal that was kind of his assistant at the time, she called me like 2 months later, and she's like, you only heard him speak once, right? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, and you like turned it into that? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, wow, like we're pretty impressed because that's not something that Simon is good at by his own admission. Like he has all the ideas in the world, but putting them into actual tangible stuff was not his strength. So she said, do you want to come? We're putting together an online course. Do you want to come help us do that? I was like, sure. So I would work with them. They were on East Coast time. So I worked with them for a couple hours in the morning and then I would go to this, training job and for the rest of the day. And it was awesome learning all of this stuff that I was learning from Simon and then trying to incorporate it into this company. So I did that for 2 years. After the course was done, I started, his TED Talk had come out and his first book had come out. So, we're starting to get some more traffic and stuff. So I was answering emails and answering questions and explaining stuff to people. And 2 years in, this little startup that I was working for, just make a long story short, basically they didn't get it and they never really grasped onto it. And so they didn't want to keep paying me for what I was trying to do. So they let me go. And I'm sitting there with my box on the curb waiting for my wife to come pick me up. And I called Simon and I was like, hey, I got some spare time. You got anything else for me to do? And to his credit, he brought me on full time as a contractor. Couldn't afford it at the time, but he did. And so I was, creating PDF downloads and we had no clue what we were doing. It was 3 of us trying to figure out what in the world we were doing. But he was, had all these ideas, and we were out. So I was trying to capture some stuff and turn it into tangible stuff people could use. And then eventually, it was about 2010, 2011. We were getting so many requests via email. It's like 20 a week, which at that time was a lot for him. I called him and I was like, dude, this is when I was still scared of Simon a little bit. I said, you're getting way more requests than you can handle. Like, I know this stuff like the back of my hand. I love being behind my computer. Like, I want to be in front of people teaching stuff. So what if I just went out and did the gigs that, you don't want to do, they can't afford you don't have time for, whatever. And there was like dead silence on the other end of the line. And he said, David, I'm disappointed. And I was like, oh, crap. It just like shot my whole career in the foot.
That's brutal.
He said, I'm disappointed you didn't think of that sooner. That's a really good idea. So he's like, go out and get some practice. So for a year, I went out and spoke at every Rotary Club and Chamber of Commerce and everybody who would let me talk to them for 15 minutes while they were eating lunch to get comfortable with what I was going to do. And then the final step of that was I had to fly to New York and present to Simon, which was a complete disaster. And I mean, by this time, people are he's still not super, super, popular at this point. This is 2011, 2012. But still, it's like it's his reputation on the line, right?
He's your boss also. And like, so you need this, it's important to you, but so yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So, but again, to his credit, like he trusts me enough to go and stand on a stage on his behalf. And that launched an 8-year career of traveling around the planet talking about his stuff.
Well, I want to hear about the disaster. What went down when you presented to him the final time? Or not the final time, but like for the sign off.
I think the biggest thing was, so during that time, after when I lost my job, again, first kid on the way, had been born by then, MBA, like all this stuff. And like stability and structure and certainty were like anchors for me back then, right? I had to know where my next paycheck was coming from. And all of a sudden, like everything was just chaos. And so I don't remember how long it took, but it was in a very, very short time, I lost my ability to use my voice. I was like this. I could barely, I could barely get a sound out. There were some days that were better than others, but I literally we would go out and I would have to have, especially if we were in a louder environment, my wife would have to talk for me. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Went to a neurologist at the U of U. Was it diet? Am I allergic to something? I cut out all these things, tried to figure out what in the world it was. Nothing. And I was like, I am trying to launch a speaking career and I can't use my voice. Eventually figured out it was just stress. Like I was so stressed out, and that's where it was manifesting itself. It just closed up my throat to the point that I could not get a sound out. And I still, when I get super stressed out now, I still struggle like to get the first sound of a word out, and then the rest of the sentence comes. But anyway, so I was dealing with that when I went to Simon's to present to him before he would release me, right? And my voice acted up, and I couldn't. It wouldn't work. And so he thought he could fix it. And so he sat me down with, I don't know, like where the sidewalk ends or something, right? And had me just read, and was like trying to coach me through, like voice coaching through reading this book, and it wasn't working. And so that was increasing my level of stress. And so it was awful. So I didn't even make it through the talk when I presented it to him, right? Despite all that, he still trusted me enough to go out and do it, which is kind of a miracle.
Yeah, that's saying something. That's a brutal cycle to be in, where you're counting on this thing to your voice. This is your tool, your instrument to make you money, proceed your career, and launch your speaking career. And it's brought on by stress, and you need your voice to remove the stress, but you can't. Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what unlocked it. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Faith is huge to me. We'll probably talk more about that. But I asked for a blessing from a friend of mine in my ward, in my congregation. He came over and gave me a blessing, and instantly I could speak. It was an absolute miracle. It's not that it stayed consistent forever and ever and ever after that, but I went from before the blessing having to whisper at him to after the blessing being able to talk to him.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that, man. That's really, really cool. Wow. That is a miracle. No question about it. That's special. So, okay. So after that happened, then you went, Simon still put his trust in you. You still went out, and then you were busy for a while doing speaking gigs. This is,
Yeah.
how long did that last?
So 2012 to 2019, through 2019, it was, got busier and busier. Around 2015, he had a video that went viral on YouTube about millennials. That's really when his popularity went up. And like, if you didn't know who he was, you were like living under a rock. Since COVID and stuff like that, he's not doing as much speaking and that kind of stuff. And so now fewer people know about him anymore, but those who do still do.
Sure. So you didn't stay with Simon forever. You're not still there, but that was a goal, a big goal and an achievement that you'd worked toward for quite a while. Was it hard to walk away from that and to move on and start doing something else?
It was, because for a couple of reasons. There were hard things about it, and obviously there were reasons that made it the right move. But,
Sure.
Attaching or being attached to somebody who has had as much of an impact as Simon has, it was completely career changing. Even now, it's like, it's not that I use it to my advantage necessarily, but just as a reference point, people know that I came from Simon's team. Like, that's still a big deal.
Makes it
to a lot of people. So I'm proud of the work that we were able to do there. And it was hard to leave that because of not necessarily the notoriety that he had built, but just the impact that we had had.
Sure.
And to know that could potentially continue, However, it felt like the right time for me to go do my own thing, which was I would call it an evolution of Simon's work, because it's still very, what I talked about and what his books talk about and teach are so fundamentally ingrained in who I am and who I want to become, that again, like, it was an evolution. It was just a different way to talk about some of those similar ideas and kind of be in a different spot in the parking lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing was, though, I left in December of 2019. I think I had a couple of speaking engagements that had still been contracted through Simon through the beginning of, actually all of 2020. My last one was February of 2020, because we all know what happened in March, right? So overnight, I had things lined up. I had, one of the biggest speakers bureaus in the country, like, super excited to work with me exclusively. And they had brought tons of business to me in the past, connected with Simon, obviously, but they were super excited to, launch me and keep me going. And like, things were looking great. And then March hits, and overnight, my income completely disappears.
Oh, dude, that's got to be extra hard. That's hard for anybody, but you mentioned a minute ago how stability, knowing your next paycheck, those are anchors for you said. And so that hits extra heavy. Talk me through it.
Well, by that point, I had gotten, and I was busy with Simon. It was a great transition period for that reason, where I was a contractor, I wasn't an employee, I didn't have benefits. Like, there was that level of uncertainty, and the market goes up and down. Certain seasons are super slow, some seasons are super busy. And so,
Sure.
But it was financially, I did great, but it was a nice time for me to be able to kind of go through those ups and downs and some of that uncertainty while still having a good safety net, and to know that stuff was going to come.
Yeah.
Right. So when COVID came and I lost everything again, I don't want to say I was prepared for it, but I was in a place where I felt like, you know what, it's going to work out, right? Because God had carried me through the uncertainties in the years up until then, and I was like, I'm not going to die, Worst case, I move into my parents' basement again, like, whatever. So that, but it was tough, because I was so excited to go out, and when I left Simon's team, it was like all of a sudden I was like, I can talk about whatever I want, and I didn't really know what that was yet. Because I just, I was 100% into his content and loved it, but I was like, I can't talk about that anymore. So what do I talk about?
Yeah.
So initially, it was a really good time for me to say, okay, well, let me explore what I want to do, what I want to talk about. My friend Peter, who he and I co-authored Find Your Why with Simon in 2017, he left at the same time as I did. And so we were working together, and we were going to write a book together. And so we started down that process. And anyway, like, just there was tons of opportunity, but nothing was really falling into place the right way for me. By the way, pile on top of that, we had just finished building a home in Alpine, and like, COVID hit when we were kind of in the last 6 months of building that house. So we were like, do we even move in? What do we do? Like, how do we just sell it? But we felt like we needed to be there for some reason. So we moved in. It was like, we got savings. We're okay. Like, we'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well, 2 years into COVID and still like nothing is picking up. Speakers, if companies are having corporate events, they're virtual. So I'm doing some virtual stuff, but then with all the social unrest stuff with George Floyd and everything, like my speakers bureau agent, who is based in New York, even told me, she's like, I'm sorry, man, but like, that's the reality. You are not going to get a job.
Oh, brutal.
And that went on for, however long it went on for. But anyway, we're 3 years in and still like nothing is picking up. And so, I don't know how much farther down you want me to go on the story,
but to the end.
So I was out to lunch again with these two buddies from AT&T. Mm-hmm. And one of them has been very, very successful in real estate, my best friend. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just figure out what my house is worth, right? We've been in it 3 years by now. And just for curiosity, let me just see what it's worth. And this is a little bit after the time when people were paying, 100, 200 grand over market value for homes and stuff. Yeah. Just crazy. But I was like, it's probably still worth a decent amount.
Sure.
So he comes back with a number and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that's insane. And so I was like, all this time we were still sitting there wondering, why did we feel like we needed to be here? Was it because somebody needed us, because we needed to meet somebody? And we met some great people. But when that came, it was kind of like this little gift of like, you know what? You were here so that we could put you in this position. So we sold our house, which is the hardest thing for my wife to do because she designed it and built it. She didn't swing the hammer, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, good riddance, get me out of this thing. And so we sold that. We paid cash for 2 smaller homes, 10 minutes down the street.
Nice.
And just overnight, just that weight of that mortgage, like off my shoulders. And anyway, so that's awesome. That man. Period of leaving COVID. And then, yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of faith there.
Yeah.
That you're following and trusting because that's a long time, man.
Yeah.
I was thinking like 3 years, something plus or ish. Like,
yeah,
it's a long time to just be like, well, still feels like this is going to work out okay.
Yeah. And but here's the thing too, right? When was it? It was in 2023, actually. We still decided to go forward with the sale, but I had met a guy named Tim Spiker, another author, has his own consulting business. And I met him probably in late 2021 or so, but we just, his book and his concepts were so aligned with mine. I heard him on a webinar and he, like 16 times throughout the thing, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I talk about. Like, oh my gosh, I do that exercise with my clients too. Like, it was uncanny, like how closely our stuff matched. And so I got a hold of him afterwards. I was like, dude, I think we share a brain. We should probably be friends. So we just kept in touch. We just we're talking about stuff and, but no plans to work together really. Then in 2023, just a few months before we moved out of our house, he offered me a 2.5-year contract to work with one of his clients, his major client out in the Midwest. And what I was going to get paid, it was super part-time for me, so I could still do all my stuff for my own business, my own content, but it would cover our bills for the next 2.5 years, not including our big mortgage payment, which we got rid of, right?
That's amazing.
So it's just, again, like God knows, I've come to realize that he knows what I need when I need it. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have stress. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have uncertainty. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have anxiety. But I've just learned that when something doesn't feel like it's working out, it'll work out. I just have to be open. I have to listen. I have to be ready and be willing to accept what comes.
I love that. I think there's something to that, being open, because I think I'm not the organizational expert here, but I think people, it's hard when you're in the moment. People think they know what's best, and they probably do for them to an extent, but also like, yeah, I believe also that there's somebody else in charge, and so they have the whole big picture view, and we're just missing part of it. So thanks for going there, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you ended up taking that client, right?
I did. That just ended in December 2025.
Nice.
And he's got me doing another much smaller group, starting in August of this year. So,
did you ever think you've written 2 books now? Did you ever think you were going to write a book? Did you kind of always want to, or was this something that you're like,
no?
Talk me through the first one, when you decided you wanted to write the first one with Peter.
Well, it wasn't necessarily my decision. I mean, Simon had written Start With Why in 2009, which was basically just laying out the concept and the idea of purpose and finding your why. And then for, I don't know, 3-4 years, people were saying, okay, great. Like I get the concept, but how do I actually do that for myself?
Yeah, that makes sense.
How do I actually find my why? How do I actually find the why for my team, for my company? And so the question got asked enough that we finally realized, okay, maybe we should, I mean, Simon could go and, you know, be with your company for an hour or less and like pull a rabbit out of a hat and tell you what your why was. It was great, but it's like, it's not replicatable. It's not scalable, right?
Yeah.
So Peter and I started experimenting and doing workshops and leadership sessions and stuff where we would try a couple of different approaches and methods to help people do it themselves. And so 6 years later, we finally felt like, okay, we have a good solid system that we can teach people how to do it and everybody can do it themselves. That's when the idea for Find Your Why came out, right?
Got it.
And so that I'd never, I mean, it was Simon's brainchild, obviously. And then Peter and I, just through the work that we had done and the research that we had done, kind of put the meat into it. And so that's how that one came about. It's kind of a pain though, because I was in Salt Lake, Simon was in New York, Peter was in London, or in the UK. So trying to coordinate, that was a nightmare.
They're not there are small windows of overlapping time there to work together on a good sized book, especially during COVID, right? Still, I mean,
this is 2017.
Oh, okay. So,
2016, 2017.
Got it.
Yeah.
So then when did you know that you needed to write next book?
It was probably about 1.5 years ago. I had, with all the time that I had on my hands, because I wasn't getting much work, I had really dialed in my content, what I wanted to talk about, framework that I wanted to share. There were a couple of factors that got me into writing a book. So I started the book when I first left Simon's team. I started a book with Peter together. That one didn't work out. He ended up taking that over and writing it on his own. Did a great job with that one. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to write my own too. Worked with somebody to kind of help me work through that. It just, I don't know, like it wasn't coming out, just wasn't flowing. So I dropped that for a couple years. And then again, just about 1.5 years ago, there were a couple of factors. One was I had given my own keynote enough that I just felt like, I'm very much into simplicity and simple principles, simple ideas. But I felt like the keynote that I was delivering, while it was simple and it was great for the people that were hearing it, there wasn't a lot of depth behind it for me. Like I didn't have anything to draw from that I could, if I needed to take a simple concept and enhance it with anything, or to, and so I was like, I'm basically at the same level as the people that are hearing my content, which is not where I want to be. So I said, my thought was, I want to understand my own ideas better. So writing a book is a great way to do that, because I have to research examples and, theory behind it, and like, how does it work and why does it work, and, stuff like that. And so that was one major motivation. Second thing is kind of silly, but I was so tired of, and it didn't happen all the time, but I was tired of being asked to come give a keynote to a company of my content and then do a book signing of Find Your Why. And, it had been 7 years since, 7, 8 years since I wrote that book. And so I thought, like, what have you done for me lately? Like, I want to have something that, anchors to my content, something that I can actually give out to people that gives them more depth on the concepts that I talk about. So those were the big motivations.
I mean, that makes sense. It's also, it's not exactly the same, but earlier you were talking about how you wanted to be able to see something through to completion, like work with companies and see how the things applied worked out. And I mean, it's just it's another thing to anchor to prove out that, hey, people are reading it, they're enjoying it. It's another data point. And I think that makes a lot of sense. As you're working through writing the book, you were talking about kind of like understanding yourself a little bit better. Did you have a process or like a structure or framework that you followed as you were doing that? Or was it, how did you approach getting yourself?
This goes back all the way to my work with Simon. My focus was always, how do we make it actionable? Like the ideas are great. It's nice to be inspired by something, but how do we actually use it and do something with it? And so the practicality of the thing has always been really important. So with my book, I wanted it to be less of a book, like a theory of leadership, and more of a field guide. And it's a smaller book. It's 180 pages. I intentionally made it shorter than the 220, 230 page business book, because I want people to be able to get through it fairly quickly, and then be able to refer back to it, keep it on their desk and refer back to it, right? So the structure was basically laying out the basic principle or the concept, and I have 3 of them that I cover, and then examples of what that looks like, and then what are some of the common gaps that leaders fall into that they might not even notice they're doing this thing or not doing this thing, and then what are some frictionless practices that can help you to naturally close those gaps. So it's like, here's the thing, here's the common problem that you might not even realize that you have, and then here's how you behave in order to close that gap naturally and become a leader that people choose to follow.
I like the book, by the way. It's a good book.
Thanks.
You did a great job, man.
Thank you.
So, well, something I liked about it as a side note, I liked that it makes sense when you explained it as that you wanted it to be like a field guide. Like I liked actually in the printing how the printing lines up on the side. And so you could kind of tell where a chapter starts and begins just like without even thumbing through it. Like you quickly glance. I know this is about halfway through. This is where you can jump to it.
Yeah.
Really, I'm guessing that was intentional. I like it a lot.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, well done, man. So, well, actually, let me say this. Before we jump into a couple specific questions, do you want to talk about the title? I liked it. It's good. And I was curious.
That's probably a good idea, huh?
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's talk about the title.
Yeah. So the title is Lead with Uncommon Sense.
Okay.
The premise behind the whole book and behind everything I talk about is we all know what great leadership looks like, right? Like if I asked you to think of the greatest leader you've ever followed and describe what it is about them that made them great, what would you say?
That they cared about me. And they also that 2 things. One is that they cared about me, and 2 is that they had a vision and they could point me in the direction of a vision.
Okay, good. I have asked that same question to literally tens of thousands of people all over the planet. The answers always come back exactly the same. Doesn't matter what the country is, doesn't matter the industry, doesn't matter the demographic, doesn't matter the age, nothing matters. It's always those human-focused things. That's what we think about when we think about the greatest leaders we've ever followed. They cared about me. They listened to me. They pushed me. They saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Like all of these things, nobody has ever, the entire time that I've done this, nobody has ever said, man, you should check out the way they do spreadsheets. Yeah. Their prompt engineering is like next level. Important stuff, of course, right? Sure. But that's not why we choose to follow leaders. We choose to follow them. The ones that we remember and are most drawn to follow are the ones who have that human element, right? So it's common sense. Like everybody says that. I don't care if you're an engineer. I don't care if you're in HR. Like everybody says the same thing, right? So if that's the type of leader we choose to follow, if that's the leaders that make the biggest impact on us, why are we spending 90% of our time and 100% of our anxiety on the stuff that doesn't even make the list?
It's funny. It's funny because 100% of our anxiety is true and everybody has it. And you're absolutely right.
Yeah. We're focusing on our strategic direction. We're focusing on the numbers. We're focusing on the metrics. Again, super, super important.
You have to have it. Yeah.
Don't get rid of those. But the intent of the book and my work is to elevate the human element of leadership to the same level, at least, as all that tactical stuff. We need them both. And when you have both, that's when you get the sustainable performance. Because look, I'm not here like, we're not going to get in a circle and sing Kumbaya and hug each other, right? Like I know that business requires results.
Sure.
Right. And that's the goal of business, is to grow and to make money. And if you really want to get there in a sustainable way while you keep your people, then take care of your people.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. So it's I say uncommon sense because we all know what great leadership is, but it's very uncommon in practice. We don't see it that often.
Yeah. So I interviewed a guy a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the leadership principles that were applied at his company that we were talking about. And he was saying, hey, the whole theory is really, really great, but once they put you into management or leadership, they don't tell you how to do it. They're like, this is what you should do, but like not how you should do it. And so I think having a field guide like that is probably really helpful for people to help them understand.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened with my buddy next door, my neighbor, who got put into that leadership position and had no idea what to do.
Yeah. Is it that simple, the delta between management and the company's ideology in what they think leaders and managers should do is just simple? It's like a little bit of training, like teaching how to use that muscle. And
I think part of it is training into what they need to be doing and how they need to be behaving. But it really comes down to, and this is part of the premise of the book also, is we have to start by leading ourselves.
Okay.
Right? This is about your leadership character. It's about who you are, how you show up, the type of environment that you create, the way people feel when you're in the room. Like it is your presence. And so it's not about how do I lead my team better? How do I lead externally in a more effective way? That's part of it, but it has to start with yourself. And it's also not a step one, step two kind of thing. You can't just work on yourself and not lead your team, right? But it's doing both at the same time, being more intentional and aware of how you are leading yourself. How are you building your leadership character, as I call it?
So let me ask this tactically. Like, what's your advice for people when they are busy leading a team, whether they like it or don't, but they're busy in their day-to-day job, and they get a hold of this information, they realize all of a sudden, oh shoot, I have 2 new things that I need to work on now. And I need to relearn part ways how to lead my own team. And I need to work and figure out how to lead myself better. I like the way you said that too. What's your advice for them on how to find more time or how to work that into their job where it doesn't become just, or doesn't become something that gets pushed by the wayside ultimately, I guess?
Well, I think the key is I'm not giving them more stuff to do. Okay. I'm giving them a different way to think and behave based on that thought. So I'll give you just a very tactical example, right? You have a Monday morning huddle or meeting with your team. You're having the meeting anyway, right? You can either show up with all the answers and giving your opinion first and then seeing what everybody else thinks, or you can have that exact same meeting by saying, hey, what does everybody else think? And then at the end, you speak.
I like that.
Right? That's it.
It's the same amount of time, same amount of preparation work. You've just changed the order.
Yep. You're just being more intentional and thinking differently about how you're doing the things you're already doing.
Would that be one of those frictionless changes that you called?
Yep.
You talked about? That's cool. I like that a lot.
Because to your point, if I give you a to-do list of new things to do, you're not going to do them. Your plate's already too full anyway.
I'll think in the moment, I'm going to do that. I want to do that.
Of course.
But like, probably not.
Yeah.
Stuff's too busy.
So, and it's like, it's not that you'll be perfect at it every time, but here's another thing that just, for example, let's say that you've decided that you can only handle one thing. You've decided I'm going to speak last in every meeting as a leader, right? You might, with everything going on in the day, you might forget to do that if you don't have a little reminder for yourself. So here's another thing you can do is every time, like I have had a trigger for a long time. I think it's Brendan Burchard that talks about this. Could be James Clear. You set a trigger for yourself. So for me, it's walking through a doorway. Every time I walk through a doorway, it reminds me of something. So it could be like I recite one of the core values that I have that I try to live by every single time I walk through a doorway. Do I forget sometimes when I'm in a new place? Sure. But that consistency reminds me of my values hundreds or thousands of times in a week. Right? So if your trigger is, okay, every time I sit down at my office desk, I'm going to remind myself, okay, next meeting, I'm going to speak last. How many times do you get up and sit down from your desk every day, right? Every time you sit down, I'm going to speak last in my meeting. I'm going to speak last in the next meeting. I'm going to speak last in the next meeting. Set that trigger. The next time you get in the meeting, you're that much more likely to remember to speak last because you set that trigger for yourself and it's top of mind for you, right?
How did you go about like the first time that you said, like, I'm going to do this? Like, how did you instill that trigger into your mind?
Discipline.
Did you did you just like write it down and remind yourself or like?
No, I mean, it was literally just a mental note. And again, like I would forget. I still forget. I'll walk around my house, doorways that I go through all the time, and I will forget to do it. But if I'm doing it 50 times a week, it's better than doing it 0 times a week, you know?
So, but you'd made it intentional enough that at some point during the week, you reminded, I told myself I was going to do this. I'm going to start doing this. Yeah. And then you do it and you come back to it. And eventually then, that shrinks. You become more consistent at it. Instead of doing it 1 out of 100, you're doing, just.
Well, the other thing too is every morning as part of my morning routine, I journal, and that's one of the things that I read every day is this is my trigger.
Interesting.
So I read it every morning. So again, it's top of mind. It's kind of meta, right? So I'm reading about the fact that I need to have a trigger so that I will remember to do the trigger so that I will do the thing that the trigger is reminding me to do.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So it might sound overwhelming, but once you get into this habit of, and again, it's a mindset and it's a relationship with who you want to become. And when you identify with that type of leader, that type of mom, that type of dad, whoever it is that you're trying to become, it gives you that internal motivation to do the things that you need to do in order to become the person that you want to become.
You mentioned your morning routine. What's your morning routine look like?
So this takes a little extra level of discipline because I'm not a paper person, I'm a digital person. But the first thing I do is I read my scriptures. Then I pray, and then and my prayers are long. They're like 10, 12 minutes probably. And then I will sit in silence for at least 3 minutes just to see if there's anything that God needs to share with me. Then I do, and this is all like, I'm reading scriptures on my phone. After my prayer, I read, I hate calling them affirmations, but that's just like the simple thing that people understand. But I have 3 statements that I read, again, about the type of life that I'm trying to build, the type of person I'm trying to become at home, at work. And then I recently added to that a list of, I call it what is true, which is metrics and numbers and dollar amounts and things that I'm trying to achieve in my business, and pounding those into my head every day of this is what I'm after. And again, those are secondary. Make a mental note of this. We're going to talk about life plan versus business plan.
Okay.
And then I do my journaling, which is very, very simple. Well, actually, the morning part is a little bit more intense, but it only takes me 5 minutes. But part of that is 3 things that I am grateful for, and I don't allow myself repeats. And then the other one that is really special to me is what I call God winks, which are ways that I have seen God's hand in my life over the last 24 hours. And they're just the little things, right? Yeah. The little things that popped up of like, hey, I got done with work early and I got to spend 5 minutes with my daughter, something like that, And then exercise.
And so you have blocked out, this whole thing takes you an hour and a half?
Yeah, with the exercise, around an hour and 15 probably.
Nice.
And I don't allow myself to check messages, email, anything until after at least I'm done with my journaling. I might check before I do my workout or whatever, but that first hour.
Do you have a tool or system that helps you to turn off those messages for the time, or you just go on sleep mode or on your phone or what? Yeah,
I'm usually still on sleep mode by then, so I don't even see the notifications. But again, like it's discipline. You just got to...
A little bit of discipline, a little bit of system. I like it. Totally okay to say no to this part if you don't want, but would you be open to sharing your 3 things that you read, your kind of statements? I think sometimes having an example, it gives people like a little something.
Oh yeah, totally.
Thanks, man.
I start with my vision and my mission. My vision is do meaningful work, live with joy, and give with freedom. My mission is help people show up at their best in leadership and in life. So then the 3 things that I read to myself, again, they kind of deal with different parts of my life. The first one is I have unchangeable worth and a divine nature. I'm an infinitely loved child of God and a disciple of Jesus Christ. I love my life and I'm grateful for each moment. I'm unshaken by life because I'm rooted in Christ. I'm blessed with gifts that allow me to do God's will. I want what he wants for me. I'm a father who is a hero to his children. I treat them and think of them with unwavering love. I'm a devoted husband committed to consistent improvement. I am sensitive and responsive to Dunny's needs and treat her with gentleness, meekness, and love unfeigned. That's the first one. This is the second one. I am 100% committed to co-generating a certain number of dollars per month through my business and partnerships by October 2026. That will change as time goes on. This is deeply meaningful to me because it provides financial freedom and allows me to focus more on serving, giving, and lifting others with a giveaway budget of X dollars per month, which is a big number that I'm really excited about. And that's just to be able to help people who need help. To ensure I follow through, I believe it's possible. I think and act like a wise, decisive, cause-driven entrepreneur. I include Heavenly Father in my business endeavors. I dedicate my focus days to the 20% that drive 80% of the results. I am executing on an evolving business strategy. This is the last one. I am 100% committed to co-creating a life of meaningful freedom and financial abundance. Right? By the way, real quick, on the second one I said I am 100% committed to co-generating, and the third one is co-creating. Who am I? Who is my co-pilot?
You tell me. I don't know.
God.
Okay.
I involve him in everything. I am 100% committed to co-creating a life of meaningful freedom and financial abundance. This is deeply meaningful to me because I want to experience and share joy, service, and abundance with my family, friends, and complete strangers so they experience a more meaningful life. To ensure I follow through, I shine a light on those around me. I practice giving no matter how much I have. I exercise deep gratitude. I always remember Jesus Christ so I can have his spirit to be with me. I say no to things that don't align with my cause. I am a buyer, not a seller. I focus my time and energy on creating joy, meaning, and financial abundance in my life.
It's cool. Thank you, man. Thanks for going there. I appreciate that. That's really cool. Like you think about like creating a culture at work, right? Or I read, I've never been responsible for creating a work culture, but I read that it's important that you reiterate messaging even more than you think you need to, because people forget and you hear the messaging more and more and more. So as you're creating your culture in your life, reading that every day is probably really impactful.
Yeah, it really is. And it's been really cool to see. And I started doing this probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it's morphed and changed a little bit as thoughts have evolved, but it's been really, really cool to see how some of these things are already happening. And, like I had a financial goal set for myself that seemed pretty big. And I had no clue how I was going to get there by October. And then I decided to almost double it.
Before you'd achieved it, you decided to double it. Wow. Okay.
Because I was like, why not?
Why not? Yeah, go big.
Yeah. So, and it's been really cool to see how things have sort of evolved and popped into my life that are potentially going to make that possible.
That's cool.
Which is great. And if not, like, whatever, fine. Like, does it have to be October? No, it's not a magical month. Great, it'll be January, whatever. But the point is, because that is our mind is so powerful, as you know, right?
Yeah.
If you tell your mind something, it will figure out how to do it. So I'm like, why not go bigger? Not so I can buy more stuff, but literally, like, one of my major motivations for making more money is to be able to serve more and do more good.
It's cool. I agree with what you said specifically just now about your mind knows what to do. I mean, it goes back to your one of the earliest comments you made in the conversation, which is about you know good leadership when you see it. Like, your body and your mind already know so much. Like, it's right there. You just have to give it a chance and access it. And I think there's a lot more there than we look for. So a second ago you said make a mental note, which I did. Do you want to talk about life plan versus business plan?
Yeah. And this kind of goes into what I just read, but I have always had a really, really hard. I'm not a natural born entrepreneur. I'm not one of those. Not yet one of those people who just naturally can just build a business, and like I just don't. It's just not how I'm wired. And I've made it through okay with having to do my own thing. But I always struggled with, like, what's my business plan? What are my business goals? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Like, I don't know. Like, I finally just sort of gave up, and I was like, I'm just totally open to where the future leads. I'm comfortable with that. But that's still a crappy answer. And like, I didn't like when people would ask me, like, what are you trying to build with your business? I don't know. Like, and it just like that question has always been really tough for me to answer. And it was probably, I don't know, fall or so of last year, I realized, I think it was even as I was reading these things, I was like, I don't have a business plan. Like, I don't live to work. Like, I have a life plan. Like, I want to travel. I want to spend time with my family. I want to do cool service things. I want to travel around and like just experience. I want to experience a meaningful life. Like, that's my plan. So my business supports that. So I have a life plan, not a business plan.
I like that.
And it's like, it's made it. And when people ask me, what's your plan with your business? I'm like, it's not, it's this instead. And they're like, oh. And again, this goes back to how, especially in the States, I think we see business and we see success. It's about how much money your business is going to make, or how much you're going to be able to sell it for, or what your salary is. Great. Like, that's awesome. And like, so what?
Yeah.
Like, nobody's going to talk about that at your funeral.
No, I totally agree with that. I think I have this consistent thought when I hear people use the word success. It's almost always, well, you've achieved success, or what kind of success do you want? That almost always equals a dollar amount or something related to money. Yeah. The people that I really respect, I don't hear them talk about money, especially people when they're close to dying. You never hear them talk about it. So like, I feel like, I think that's something that's an important shift. I don't know if people will make it, or they can make it, or we ever will, but in my mind, I've been really rethinking what does success look like, because it's whatever it is, it's not money. It's definitely not money.
Well, the funny thing is too, is like, every time I hear people say that, oh, money's not important, it's like, they're the people who can afford to say that, you know?
Well, yeah. I think, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, so I don't want to discount the fact that there are so many people out there who are like, no, money is going to make me happy. Yes, it absolutely will to a certain extent, right? But I don't want to discount the importance of it, or like take away the financial component of success, because I think that's definitely a part of it. But to your point, it's not the thing at the top of the list, right? We need it, and we need enough to be able to feel comfortable, feel secure. But then after that, like, do we really need that much more?
Anyone who's listened to my podcast, they've heard me use this phrase before, but I love the way that Kanye West says it, because I think it's perfect. He says, having money's not everything, but not having it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. What I'd like to do is ask you a handful of these questions that we'll kind of do like a rapid fire question, and you answer them however you want.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. So if leadership is simple, why don't we have more great leaders?
Because of the pressure that we either put on leaders or that we put on ourselves. that are based around things that are completely different than what we actually care about in leadership. So, and I think a lot of the pressure that leaders feel is self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's pressure from the top, but I think there's, there's that selfishness isn't the right word, but there's that self-interest. Mm. The corporate world in general is very competitive. And if your company can get rid of you on a whim, right? And find somebody else. So with that self-interest, like, of course, we're going to worry about performance and numbers and all the things that are measurable on a spreadsheet. And so if that is our focus, then of course, all the other stuff that actually creates great leadership is going to be on the back burner.
What's your relationship with fear and failure?
Love it, but not always in the moment. So fear just increases my faith.
Interesting.
It has come to do that. It has not always been like that. I will say that happens in varying degrees depending on what I'm dealing with, but it's just, I don't feel that much fear anymore. Failure, I have come to replace with falling forward. I don't believe in failure. If I am going to get to where I want to be, it means I have to do stuff I've never done, mm-hmm. which means I'm going to try things that I've never tried before, which means I'm probably going to fail. So failure just means that I'm making my way toward becoming a better me or getting closer to the thing that I'm working to build.
Have you always felt that way?
No.
So let me ask this question then. How did you separate failure at a task from failure as in your identity?
That is a great question. So I'm so bad at remembering who taught me stuff, but
someone taught you this.
Someone taught me this.
Okay.
That my worth has nothing to do with my behavior.
Yeah.
So if I make a mistake, if I screw something up, if I fail at something, the natural thing is to think, oh, I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Right? We turn it into I am something rather mm-hmm. than I did something, I felt something, I didn't do something.
Yeah.
So I have decoupled my identity and my value mm-hmm. to my behavior.
Cool. I like that.
That doesn't give me a free pass to do whatever I want.
Sure.
It just means that when I do something, I don't beat myself up and say I am not a good person because I did this thing.
I like that. And I heard that reinforced in your morning mantra, I'm going to call it. Mm-hmm. There were several different things that you read. So
yep.
That's cool. Thank you. You've worked with some really great leaders over your career. What's one common thread that you've seen from them, from the bagel shop example that you use to CEOs of big, well-known companies?
There's a handful of things, but I think if I had to boil it down to one, it is the ability for them to have a genuine interest in other people versus in always having the interest in themselves. I mean, it's universal, right? When you reach out to somebody, when you become accessible, when you are interested in what they care about, when you want to know about them, that naturally builds better relationships. And we want to be around those people. We want to follow those people. So it's just an interest in others.
I fully agree. I love that. This is a quote from your book. A leader without trust is just a person giving orders. I really like that. It's simple. Can you unpack that for me a little?
Yeah, I think leadership is a little bit like parenting. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. And so I think another big problem is that people are put into leadership positions that really don't want to be there. Mm. So they try to do leadership or perform leadership, in fact, giving people direction or, hey, you got to get this done, or giving them a list of tasks or that kind of thing. But if you, again, haven't built that relationship, if you don't know what those people's strengths are, helping them to develop those things in line with their job description or with the project that they're working on, you're not going to build any kind of relationship. You're not going to have any kind of trust. And so all you're doing is just giving orders.
Makes sense. On that note, is there a formula for trust?
I'm sure there's a bunch out there, but one that I have used in the past that I think is pretty accurate is expectation plus experience equals trust. Expectation is a tricky one because I still am not there yet myself, but I try not to have expectations of people because then expectations are just future disappointment.
Oh, that is good.
Good, right?
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm not talking about the expectation that so let me break that, how that works. So expectations is, I'll define what expectations means. Plus experience, people don't believe what you tell them. They believe what you experience.
Yeah.
What they experience. So those two things equal trust. So expectation is not the expectation I have of my leader. It's, as a leader, what expectation am I setting for my people? So if I talk about the company values, if I talk about that this is the way we do business, then the experience doesn't match with the expectation that I've set. So let me give you a relevant example.
Yeah.
Expectation. We are going to implement this new AI tool to help make your job more efficient, right? And to help you get rid of the rocks in your shoe that all the stuff in your job you don't want to do. But then my experience is they just laid off 25 people because they brought in this new AI tool. Does not equal trust, right? But if the expectation I'm setting as a leader is, hey, we're bringing in this tool to help you guys do more valuable, meaningful work, and my experience is that I'm actually getting the training and the tools to be able to use that AI to be able to do my work in a way that is awesome and exciting to me, then that equals trust, right? So expectation that the leader sets plus the experience their people actually have equals trust.
I love that. So is it fair to think that the inverse is also true, that when they don't match, then it equals distrust?
Yes. Okay. Right? There is nothing I have seen that breaks trust faster than a leader that says one thing and does something else.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. And then they wonder why their people don't stick around.
Yeah, I like that. Now, frankly, what I'm thinking in my mind is I'm thinking, man, where have I not come through with what I said I was going to do with people in my personal life or otherwise? Like, it's all the same, right?
Yep.
Yeah. How do you advise or coach leaders to keep focus on progress over perfection, even when they have a setback?
This can be really tough, and I'll go back to that client that I worked with over that 2.5 years. And this is a specific example of this company, but it's not unique. I think especially in a leadership position, these folks happen to be kind of more middle managers, where they were feeling obviously a lot of pressure from the leaders above them. There is this compulsion that leaders have to get everything right, to have all the answers, to know exactly what's going on. And if they don't, then why am I in the position to begin with? They're, like, I'm going to get on somebody's bad list, I'm going to get fired. And so perfection, and this is, for this particular example, it was, company culture. It's the part of the country that they're in. It's just like perfection is the standard, right? And it took 2.5 years to get them to realize that, hey, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. You are not going to change everything overnight. It's impossible to change everything overnight. And some of them still were struggling with it by the end. But I think this is where those little daily frictionless behaviors and habits that you start implementing can help you realize, hey, if I look back 6 months ago, hey, I'm doing a little bit better, right? I'll give you a personal example of that one. So I, for years, recognized that I would sometimes be a little snarky with my wife. Like, if she would say something that to me was just she would ask a question that was just so obvious. Like, how can you not know that? I would respond with that type of tone, right? Among other things. And I recognized it for so long, and I just kept finding myself doing it over and over and over and over again. And I was like, oh my gosh, awareness was the first step. After about 2 years of that, I was finally like, okay, awareness done. I am now going to start doing something about it. Still not perfect at it by any stretch. But what I have learned to do is when I react that way, to be like, hey, you know what? Sorry, I didn't mean it that way. Let me try that again. If I look back 2 years ago, like, perfection? No. Progress? Absolutely yes. So we're never going to be perfect. And even if we think we're perfect, our version of perfect is not somebody else's version of perfect. Totally. So continue to make progress.
I like that. Did you bring Danielle in on this thing and give her permission to be like, hey, you're doing it? Or
yeah, I did for a while. I think she kind of gave up on it.
You're moving in the right direction. All right. We were talking about failure a minute ago, and I tend to agree with what you said, which you're like, I like it, but not in the moment. We can obviously learn from failure or falling forward either way. Can we also learn from successes, from wins? And
sure.
How do we treat those the same way? It's really easy, I think, when you're in a business, especially let's talk about work. Like, you're in work, something goes bad, you do a postmortem. You look back, okay, here's what went bad. Sometimes it's just like, well, that's a W, let's move on.
Yeah.
Like,
it worked.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. So there's nothing to learn from. I don't know. Is there anything, can we learn from successes as well as failures?
Of course. I just think it's much less likely, because if we look at our metric for success and we got there, then we're like, oh, well, there's nothing we can learn from because everything went right. What I would suggest, or what I would say, is great, we got there. And not just for the sake of doing more, but when we think about, and this goes back to the purpose of your team, the purpose of your organization, like, what are you really out there trying to accomplish? And it doesn't just mean like a bigger number, but how much more impact could we have, right? What's going to result in the bigger number. But if we did this much, great. Like, how do we refine the process, make it even better? How do we change the product? How do we change the way we approach something so that we have an even bigger impact, right? Most companies aren't doing that. I don't do that all the time. But I think, yeah, I mean, like, what a better thing to learn from than our successes, because we know what worked. And great. Now, how do we like 10x that?
What's the difference between hearing and listening?
I mean, very simply, I would say, hearing in a conversation, let's say, with a leader and somebody that they lead. Hearing is, I'm waiting for my turn to talk. I'm giving you the time, and while you're talking, I already know what I'm going to say next, right? Where listening involves asking questions to gain deeper knowledge, deeper context, gain more understanding, and ultimately, I think, help the person answer their own question instead of you coming up with an answer for them.
Another quote from the book. Humanity isn't about proximity, it's about presence. I like that a lot. Can you tell me what you were thinking about when you wrote those?
Yeah, so it goes back to the idea of performative leadership, where it's like, okay, I know logically that if I go and walk around the cubicles and, say hi to people, that's the mark of good leadership. So I walk around, but I'm thinking about the report that I'm about to give to my boss. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do this weekend. It's like, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. How's it going? You're close to them. You have the proximity. Again, it's like, it's not coming from anything inside of who you are. Whereas the presence is, again, less focus on what I'm doing, more focus on who I'm being for the people, for the person that I'm with. And that presence, again, includes focusing on them. What can I make sure that they get out of this interaction? What questions can I ask to learn to know a little bit more about what they care about? It's that outside focus that comes from that inner desire to be present, not just perform the leadership.
Perfectly said. Thank you. What haven't we covered that you want to cover? What do you want to say that we haven't said?
Actually, getting ready for this conversation kind of helped to solidify it for me a little bit, which is, if I look back at myself in my early 20s, would I have said that I was a bad person? No. When I look back now, I still wouldn't say I'm a bad person, but if I could go back and talk to that guy, I would say, I would like wring his little neck and be like, dude, stop being so selfish. Right? It was so, and again, like, it's part of growing up. It's part of life. Most people are self-interested in their early 20s, but I just look back at some of the jerky things I did. And I look back and I'm like, man, I never want to be that person again. And so I think that I'm grateful for that time in my life, because I think it put into really sharp relief the type of person I don't want to be. And again, I wasn't like a criminal doing horrible things, but my character was very, very underdeveloped. And I didn't care about other people as long as I was getting what I wanted. And that manifested itself in all kinds of different ways. So to be able to look back then and to see, again, progress over perfection, I'm not there yet, but to see where I have been able to come and just the way that I'm able to think about how I want to continue moving forward, that has been life-changing for me.
That's cool. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you joining here today. It's fun to talk about this. Like you said, 20 years later. I mean, just to see, we're different people now than we were 20 years ago, and it's fun to come together and have this conversation. I'm so impressed with what you've done. It feels cheesy. I'm going to acknowledge what I'm going to say, and I have no right to say this, but I feel proud of you, man. I'm really proud. Let me say this. I'm proud. I can't say proud of you because I don't have anything to do with it, but I'm proud. I'm proud to know you. And I'm thankful for our friendship and glad we got to have this conversation. So yeah, man, this is awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. This is rad.